last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
The President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States. This is the start. Yesterday was the start of the second term, but today is really the start of the second term because we heard the President really spell out in considerable detail his priorities for this second term. And indeed, he went way beyond what I thought he was going to do in laying out his agenda, not only on specific economic issues, on national security issues, but also speaking in very personal terms about climate change, for example. I was surprised to hear him to get into some of those political details. Gay rights, making it clear he supports gay marriage and is going to fight for those gay marriages. He also made it clear that he wants to go forward on some of the most specific entitlement issues and not deal with some of the, and not avoid some of those critical issues like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. Those are his priorities right now. And we even heard him talk about Newtown, Connecticut, and guns. The President of the United States was very, very forceful in these words. It was clear he thought long and hard about each sentence he was going to make because each one had a potentially very powerful political impact in setting the agenda for his second term. So the President of the United States surprised me when he went forward and went into such specific detail on so many of these important issues. Anderson, as you can tell, I was surprised, but I wonder how you reacted to what you heard from the President.
Well, we should also point out that the President and Vice President, the First Lady, and Dr. Biden are going to be heading to an inaugural luncheon right now inside the Capitol building, so we won't see them for some time. But I think, Wolf, just echoing some of what you said, both his comments on climate change, I think are probably maybe surprising to a number of people. It's not something we heard really anything about over the first 4 years. Clearly, it seems to be something this president feels very strongly about moving forward in the next 4 years and for his legacy. And for a president who only recently, to use his word, evolved on the issue of same-sex marriage, he made very forceful statements in this inaugural address, actually historic statements on equal rights for gay and lesbian Americans, putting in the same category Seneca Falls back in 1848 when a women's rights convention or conference was held there, in Selma, Alabama. 1965, when Alabama state troopers attacked civil rights marchers. In those same category as Seneca Falls and Selma, he put Stonewall, the Stonewall uprising, which took place in New York's Greenwich Village in 1969 on June 27th, when police raided a small gay bar called the Stonewall, and tenants and patrons at that bar fought back, and that was really the spark of the modern-day civil rights movement for gay and lesbian Americans. And he went on to talk about gay and lesbian Americans, saying our journey is not complete until our gay brothers and sisters are treated like anyone else under the law. For if we are truly created equal, then surely the love we commit to one another must be equal as well. I think that's the first time, John King, in an inaugural address where gay and lesbian Americans were particularly cited.
Cited in significant detail by a president of the United States who, as you noted, personally has evolved over the last 4 years on this issue. That is groundbreaking language from the president of the United States in a speech that it's not the most flowery speech. And we've heard this president use more flowery, uplifting rhetoric in the past. But I think it was an elegant speech in a simple, approachable way. And I thought it was very clever and artfully crafted politically in that he tied everything he wanted to do, some of it very controversial, immigration, gun control, gay rights, and some other policy initiatives. He either tied it back to the Founding Fathers, saying this is part of America's imperfect union, always getting more perfect. The Founding Fathers are often cited by the Tea Party and constitutional conservatives. Or he tied it to the other man we honor on this day, Dr. Martin Luther King, and his involvement in the bigger, broader civil rights movement, that the journey is not done. Artfully constructed, not the fine print of the details, but a pretty significant and in some big ways controversial and hard to achieve second-term initiative.
Our panel has been listening. Gloria, your thoughts?
I agree with John. I think this was very artfully constructed, to use John's phrase. It contained more specificity than I actually thought he was going to do. It was sort of a more poetic version of a State of the Union speech, made it very clear that these are the things he intends to do. These are the things he wants to do in the next term, talking about the middle class, talking about climate change, putting Republicans, I thought, on notice that we reject the belief that America must choose between caring for the generation that built this country and investing in the generation that will build its future, which means Social Security, health care, cares about the deficit, but cares about building for the future. I think that there were no real surprises here other than the fact that the president stated his agenda step by step.
The Washington Post, David Moranis is with us, who wrote the book, Barack Obama, The Story. How do you think it compares to his address in 2009?
Well, it was much more positive and much more active. I could feel his heart beating this time. It wasn't a cool Obama. It was really, I think when he said that this is our moment, I think he was feeling it was his moment. And, you know, he did, as John said, what he did is he took the Founding Fathers' riffs and language, Martin Luther King's language, some of King, and melded it into his own as sort of a statement of action, what he wants to do in the next 4 years.
It's a great phrase. You could hear his heart beating. It's interesting. Van?
Well, first of all, I think it was extraordinary, and we can't underscore the importance of him saying that our lesbian and gay sisters and brothers are equal, that their rights are equal. This is groundbreaking. This is groundbreaking for Western civilization, for human history. It's very, very extraordinary. I also think it's important. He didn't back down from the fight. He decided he was going to step forward. He was going to make his case for his own values, and he was going to put those values in the context of the deepest American values. In that way, much like Reagan didn't back down from the fight, but he tried to frame the fight in very deep historical terms and in values that all Americans can agree with. I think it was extraordinary also that he did stand up on the question of climate change. He did stand up on the question of clean energy. These are important things. He had to speak to his coalition in terms that would resonate with the country. And he spoke to every, he has a rainbow coalition. He spoke to every stripe. He spoke to poverty. He spoke to women. He spoke to African Americans. When he used that language of the blood drawn from the lash and from the sword, that was a very powerful moment, I think, for every African American. He spoke to every stripe in his rainbow coalition. That rainbow coalition is now the governing coalition in America. He spoke to it powerfully and beautifully.
Jessica, you've heard a lot of his speeches?
This was, in a sense, a grab bag a bit in the way a State of the Union is. It wasn't a single vision for what the president plans to tackle next. It wasn't a single driving message from the president.
Let's just go to Dana Bash. Dana, you're right where the president is.
That's right. He just walked by me. You can see him walking through the Capitol Rotunda, marveling at the magnificent architecture. He's walking with the vice president. Just walked by myself and other reporters here, said hello, how are you? We said, how you feel? You feel great? He said yes. And he is heading with members of the leadership, House and Democratic leadership, House and Republican leadership, rather, Democrats and Republicans, over to the Senate side. And he's going to have some formal ceremonies now. The formality is some signing of official papers. Some of them are important because they actually give him a paycheck, put him on the payroll, as well as members of the cabinet. After that, he's going to be back in here and he's going to go to the lunch. And that happens. It's been happening for 60 years right around here in the Statuary Hall, which is right back there. And you can see actually people streaming in, senators, Senator Kerry, if you can see him behind me, the senator from Massachusetts, soon to be, we assume, the next Secretary of State, and other members of the Senate. This is the coat check behind me. So we have a pretty good view of the really exclusive VIP guest list that is coming for this lunch, which should start in just a little while as soon as the president is done with his signing ceremony.
Jessica, you were saying?
You had asked earlier if the president has changed in office, and what we did not hear was this gauzy message of hope and change, or red and blue America. What you heard here was a leader who plans to get some things done in the time he has left. And he is programmatic about laying out what he needs to do, explaining it to the people both in America right now, the people he plans to rally to get his agenda supported at the grassroots level, and create a context to get it done in Washington in this speech by using the words of the Founding Fathers and that support to try to push it. The other piece of it we haven't talked about is the education reform and the drawdown overseas, which are two other big pieces of his agenda.
Alex Castellanos?
Well, there wasn't a big idea, I think, in the speech today, and that was equality. That's what this speech was about.
Let's check in with Wolf. Wolf?
The president is about to sign some proclamations over here, and he's also going to officially nominate 4 new members of his cabinet. Let's see if we can listen in.
All set? All right. I'm proclaiming peace on earth and goodwill towards men. Right? All right. Amen. Sign it twice. There we go. And then I'm setting a few nominations up, which I know will be dealt with great dispatch. Mr. Jack Luke for Treasury. Mr. Charles Timothy Hagel for Defense. Mr. John Kerry, Secretary of State. And Mr. John Brennan of Virginia for the Central Intelligence Agency. There you go. Great. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Look forward to it.
Are we supposed to take them? Yes. Jeannie. We'll take them. No. Harry.
So the president, once again, formally nominating members of his cabinet, including Chuck Hagel to be Secretary of Defense, John Kerry to be Secretary of State, John Brennan. Let's listen in. Let's see what else he's saying.
This is a nice one. And that's yours.
All right. Now that one actually was something, Harry.